Hello everyone and welcome back to Calliope Music Reviews. My name is Colin, your host, you could say, and this is a little thing that I like to call the Music Canon. Today, I'd like to take a look at the up-and-coming Swedish noise pop act Weatherday, also known as Sputnik, and their sophomore album Hornet Disaster. Originating from the sewers of internet slacker rock circles and Midwest emo influences, Weatherday made their debut with 2019's critically acclaimed Come In. Combining a brisk and noisy space for gazing rock tunes and emo teenage woes, Weatherday really hit the scene with some fire, going on to collaborate with someone I've mentioned a few times now on this channel, the Korean shoegaze act Asian Glow, in their 2022 collab EP, Weatherglow. Hornet Disaster is Weatherday's first solo project in over 5 years and sees a return to their burning noise sound, along with a despondent emo tune and a nice aptitude for electronic production. First things first, the record is chock full of powerfully crispy and caustic noise pop vibrations, relished with bumpy slacker bass lines and a searing melancholic passion. It is an amalgamation of indie rock influences, quite lonely and anxious through tepid intros, but lively and substantial with scorching guitar leads, boiling electronic filaments, and an oxymoronic anthemic sentimentalism. The guitars are blistering and the drums are met with a lo-fi production that results in a never-ending assault of banging distortion. The record, although a little bloated, runs rather briskly through its 76-minute runtime due to those accelerating guitars and a mostly non-stop pace of noisy uproars and even some post-hardcore drum breakdowns. While I think the record's incessant push and tinny mixing makes the sound a little fragile and kind of bland as it goes on, for the most part, there is a pretty infectious energy when all the elements of the album pull together to form a seriously heavy corrosion, scathing with vigorous noise and zappy electronics. It's a sound that, despite its chaotic and downcast perspective, can provide a huge sense of catharsis when Weatherday is just throwing caution at the wind, riding erratic waves of distortion to the finish line. I do have to say though, Sputnik's vocals are kind of a miss for me. While their raw yells and scratchy refrains display a real pain and angst, they really don't hold much melodic power or satisfying tonality to complement the elaborate guitar and synth leads surrounding the instrumentals. It's raw, but it's pretty grating overall. However, this grating quality is a lot more positively impactful when it comes to the emotional force of the record. What I mean by that is that Sputnik's lyrics here are just brutal and communicate a message beyond the instrumentation's simpler teenage anxiety. The record seems to be about a great loneliness where the narrator and their subject are swallowed into a sad and just numbing depression. This builds a parallel to Weatherday's debut album, Come In, where Weatherday was essentially inviting the listener into their little corner of the world through a much lighter and optimistic lens. Here, Weatherday is not so optimistic, fully embracing the numbness of loneliness, no longer having much fun or finding comfort in their isolation, and this central message is fully explored on the penultimate track, Agatha's Goldfish. While Sputnik does try to introduce some humor through small internet references like the Northern Lion sample on Chopland Sedans, the album's energy never escapes its own confined sort of melancholia. Well, it's actually hard to even call it melancholia when songs like Blood Online, Choplin Sedans, and Ripped Apart by Hands describe a haunting nonchalance to crippling isolation and self-harm. This album honestly may be difficult for some to get through because it's just extremely painful to hear Sputnik discussing self-harm and loss with such indifference, as if they've accepted a life of misery. This is really where that stinging sensation comes from, a feeling that aligns with the album title, Hornet Disaster, described in detail on the lyrics of the final track, Heaven Smile. Then there's a few other tracks like Green Tea Seaweed Sea and Nostalgia Drive Avatar that deal with other issues like the risk of getting close to someone or the emotional trap that can be nostalgia, adding some depth and personability to the record. There is some potent imagery as well, with many references to a former lover who writes, speaks, and texts in cursive, constantly pulling at the narrator's heart, but confusing them and reminding them why they're not good for one another in the first place. This and motifs of painful snow angels and a melting bed give the record a little world to live in, adding to the isolated vision introduced on Come In. Now, where Hornet Disaster differs from Come In is in its sequencing and pace. This new record opts for a more jumbled progression of tracks, consistent in their quality, but not sequentially focused or very intentional in their delivery. I don't think this necessarily helps the record's 76-minute runtime be more consumable on repeat listens, and contributes to a little bit of a mess of texture and just a teeny tiny bit of bloat. But even with that, the speedy turbulence of the progressions and the stinging emotional complex of the record make it absolutely worthwhile and more. So in the end, I'm feeling a 7 out of 10 for Weatherday's Hornet Disaster. There aren't many moments that really stand out above the rest, but I think my favorite songs on the album are Green Tea Seaweed Sea, try saying that 5 times fast, Blood Online, and Agatha's Goldfish Sparkling Water. And alright, that's pretty much it for this quick video. As always, please listen to the record on your own and let me know what you think of this record in the comments below. I will warn you though, there are some pretty heavy topics, so if you are triggered by some of those topics and you don't want to listen to that record, that makes perfect sense. But if you do end up listening, then let me know what you think. As always, you can recommend any other records or albums that you want me to take a look on this channel as well. And with that, this has been Weatherday, the music canon, and I will see you in the next one.